Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Somia Salah. I'm psychologist and observer at the Observatory of children, youth, and school quality. And here is Iryna Kyzyma. She's economist and a scientific collaborator on our observatory. Today, we will present the subject of measuring well-being in the context of schools, and we will present challenges and opportunities of our work, of doing this. Okay, so let me start with the presentation of our observatory. The Observatory of Children, Youth and School Quality is under the Ministry of National Education, Childhood and Youth. We have a basis legal. We are created in 2018 and reorganized in 2022. So we are a young institution of the ministry. Sorry. So we have 3 missions in our legal basis. It's to evaluate the quality of schools and the quality of the institution and the politics. We have to make some recommendation, and this recommendation is present in front of the parliament because we made some report and we present our results. And we have to contribute to an objective debate because we are seen as a bridge builder. We have to make the link between the scientific world and the policymaker and the actors of the field. So teacher, direction, and so on. The observatory, we have some topics to evaluate. There are a lot of topics, and these topics are presented to our minister. And after this, after seeing this, he approved our priorities, and we make some evaluation. So we are a lot of topics, but today we will present you the topics of the quality of life at schools and our project on the well-being. So this project was conducted in 2021. It was, as you know, the pandemic context. And we received the mandate to evaluate the well-being in schools, to have how do you say, an overview of the situation in the schools. So to do this, we build a research to measure the well-being of students and teachers. And some dimension to evaluate was the well-being in general in life, the well-being in schools, the perception of the educational environment, the learning motivation, the stress, as well as the school relation and so on. Okay. The aim of this study was to measure the well-being, to collect data, and to improve the educational environment to create an healthy and inclusive school environment. Ooh. So just to explain you the design of this study, so it was made in June 2021. We tried to have the national level, so we ask each schools, all secondary school, all primary school, and competence center. So it's a school for pupils with special needs. Our population was the teacher and the children. And for the level of kindergarten, we asked the parent to fill in the questionnaire. We use a simple tool for national level. It was the questionnaire. And this questionnaire was made with the University of Liège in Belgium to build this tool. So now, Iryna will explain you some results.
Sorry, I will take over and present you some very descriptive evidence because we've just started exploring the data. So it's going to be really at the descriptive level, but we hope to be capable to present something more sophisticated maybe for next conference. In total, we got responses from 32 schools, secondary schools, from 132 primary schools and 5 competence centers. As you can see, the response rate was around 30% for kids, like for pupils, and around 26% for teachers. And then some results on the descriptive level. So here you can see the situation of general well-being of kids, how they evaluated. We had 5 questions to capture it, and we also did some factor analysis to basically combine all these questions in one composite indicator. In general, around 70% of kids reported they are happy or rather happy. We see that the girls are much happier than boys, the other way around, the boys are much happier than the girls. And it's actually evident in all the dimensions because boys are more likely to report better moods, less nervosity, and so on. We also looked at the evolution across the age because we could cover all the kids from 8 until they basically graduate from school. And we can see that the gap is not always there. So when they are very small, basically they think that they're equally happy. But then as they grow and they approach the adolescence age, girls become more negative in evaluation of their happiness and general well-being. And at some point after 20, they start approaching each other again, but it's still, there is a gap between the two genders. So the questionnaire was designed mainly to look at, wait a second, to look at well-being at school. So we also had a set of questions which asked how happy you are in school. And here we used 3 items which are also used in health behaviors of school-age kids questionnaire. And we also complemented it with 1 item from the PISA questionnaire, which asks about how do you feel in school. And we can see like roughly half of the kids, they tend to believe that they like school and they feel also good at school. So these 2 questions are kind of mirrors in a sense. And then kind of they find school as a pleasant place, but you know, there are still 30% who think going to school is a kind of boring. So it's also very interesting how they perceive it. And we also see that here we have a kind of opposite. So the girls, they report higher well-being at the school context than boys. They're happier, and we will show you later on, it's also a statistically significant difference. Also on the graph, it's less visualized than the difference in well-being when we look at it at the general level. So for teachers, some results for teachers. Teachers, they mostly report that they're very tired and they report high levels of nervosity, but they relatively rare experience bad mood or annoyance, and they are much less sad than the kids are. So somehow they feel themselves not as often sad as kids do. We do not see much difference between primary schools and secondary schools, which was surprising for us because in Luxembourg it's really a kind of different systems, and how the things are arranged is quite different. So we would assume that teachers in secondary schools might be more stressed or be more negative in evaluations of their well-being, but no, we did not find it. Nevertheless, it's around a quarter of teachers who still report that they're quite stressed in their daily working life. Yeah. And for professional well-being, so teachers, it's also very, how to say it, it's nice to be a teacher in Luxembourg because you have typically good conditions and the salaries are high, but we still see that only around 50% report that they're very happy with their professional life. And but nevertheless, the same 50% say we would not change it. So we are happy with what we have, and it's something we would like from our life. But what they do report is a kind of that they could have had maybe better working conditions. So we assume it might be somehow related to stress they experience. But it's something we want to inspect a bit more in the forthcoming months as what lies behind basically this teacher satisfaction in schools. At the moment, we just try to look a bit at the determinants of kids' well-being at school. And what we found is that like girls, they are more satisfied at schools, as I presented with some descriptive graphs. This level of satisfaction with school decreases with age. So the longer you stay in school, the less satisfied you are. We also used a variable to capture somehow socioeconomic background of families, because with children it's very difficult. So you cannot ask about income of parents, education. When you start presenting categories, they're getting lost. We tried with kids from lycée, but we got a very low response rate, which means they might have gotten confused. So what we did, we used a question which is widely used in PISA and other questionnaires, where they ask how many books you have at home. And in this situation, we found that actually it's a significant predictor, and the more books kids have at home, the higher well-being at school they report. So it's actually captures somehow the importance of socioeconomic background for kids' well-being at school. For languages, it's also very special in Luxembourg because the country is extremely diverse, and there are a lot of families who, speak other languages than Luxembourgish or German at home. So we estimated that there might be some relationship in terms of languages. What we found is that yes, French, like kids who speak French at home as the main language, they are less satisfied with their schools, and their school they report lower levels of school well-being than the kids who speak Luxembourgish at home. And we found this kind of positive impact for kids who speak English at home. They tend to be more happy in schools. We also found, obviously, that kids who feel stressed, they report lower levels of well-being. And the kids who are more motivated, who have better relationships with their peers, and who have higher levels of general well-being, they report higher levels of well-being at school. So as I said, it's all at the stage of exploration. We are trying to look a bit deeper in the determinants for kids, but also for teachers. And maybe also trying to link basically the well-being of teachers and kids, thinking that maybe the kids, who are in schools where teachers are happier, are they happy as well? Like trying to establish some relationship in that direction. I will pass it now to Somia, who will talk a bit about challenges and opportunities.
Thank you, Iryna. So now with this study, okay, we have a lot of analysis to do, but the challenges in measuring well-being was the context where we did it. It was the pandemic context, so it was very hard to do it, but we did it. One of the challenge of this study was the complex interrelationship between pupils and teacher. There is a lot of study, they focus only on teacher or only on student, and we try to take the two population to analyze this relation. One of the challenge was the variability in school environment here in Luxembourg. We have different system, different schools, and it was a difficulty to overcome. It was the difficulty to capturing the holistic nature of the well-being. It's the focus of this workshop. We know as it's difficult as to evaluate the well-being. And challenges, but opportunities. Opportunities for improvement in our educational system. It was the using data to provide feedback to individual schools. So we did it in 2022. Just an example, you don't have to read, it's in French. But we send for each participated school a feedback. It seems like that. And for each school, it's in French, but we take some indicators like the well-being, the general well-being, the professional well-being, the motivation, and so on. And we put it in a graphic with the national average, and we show how far they are from the national average. It was very useful for the schools. So it was one opportunity. The second one is to enhancing the school environment based on these results. In Luxembourg, the schools have to make a school development plan, which is compulsory. And in this school development plan, they have to build some objective for the schools. and they use this data to evaluate the situation and to build some objective for the schools. It's a 3-year plan, and they have to do it. The last one, not the least, but it was to inform the national education policies and stakeholders with these results and to show the situation of the schools in Luxembourg. Just as an example, yesterday it was at the Deputies' Chamber, an education commission, and it was an audition about the well-being of teachers. So we present some results. Sorry. So the opportunity of this research was that we adopt a dual approach. We make a feedback at 2 levels. So I explained we did it to each participating school with a personalized feedback with some indicators. And we did a national report with a summarizing empirical findings and to provide to the policymaker and the civil society some insight about the well-being in Luxembourg. So it was for us a win-win situation because we take some data, but we brought impact on both local level in schools and in the national level. I have some time. Okay. The impact and future direction of our study, of our work on the well-being. So it's to create some inclusive and healthier school environment. It's for guiding educational policy with robust data. We know that it's very difficult to evaluate a situation in schools, but it's the aim of this study. It's to provide evidence-based data and for an evidence-based policy. Sorry. We are going to make another study and another evaluation, and we would like to continue this monitoring of well-being in school because we see that it was pertinent for the field too. And voilà. For us, it's very important to use the data and to collaborate with another institution. First of all, we are going to make some empirical analysis. Iryna explained this. And one of them is to the identification of the profiles of the student at risk, because we have some social service in the ministry and they want to know which profile is more at risk. We have some collaboration with other observatories and institutions. For example, we have a collaboration with the Observatory of Gender Equality, and we are going to make a report on the difference between boys and girls on the well-being. And we are continuing our approach began in 2021. So yesterday, we sent to each schools our second questionnaire about the school climate. We took some items from the first study to see the evolution between 21 and 24. And of course, we will we will provide some feedback for the schools. This is why we take a lot of demand of the school to participate to this study. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Here is a link for our institution. It's in English. You can find it. Do you have some questions?
Any questions or comments?
So, thank you. I have a question. Is there possible to have a link or correlation or causality between the grades of students and happy student and happy teacher also in the long term at the individual level or at macro level? Because at the end, in fact, the result is people, when they're happy, they perform more.
So in fact, we don't have information on grades. We did not ask this kind of questions, but we do have information whether they have repeated a year at least once. And in Luxembourg, the repetition rate is quite high. Like it reaches up to 30% of kids who repeat at least once primary school. So it can also indicate a bit, you know, their performance level. It's not ideal, but it's still better than nothing. So this we should yeah, look at for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It was really interesting. I have two hopefully short questions. So one is, when thinking about well-being as the sort of objective of the schools, whether you make any, or whether you have thoughts about sort of trade-offs, like maybe exam time should be a bit stressful because that helps you build resilience for the job market or something like that. Or maybe some topics need to be boring, or it's like unavoidable that they'll be boring. But later on in life, that will unlock various very interesting things that you could do. So that's my first question. And my second one is, when you were talking about collaborators, I didn't see the schools themselves. And I was wondering if there's any scope for more co-production of what the well-being is, and especially what they can do about it. So in some of my work with this kind of data in the UK, often the reform priority at the school level, like what they need to change in their practices, is quite contextual to them locally. And I find it often very enlightening to see local level issues. So if students say that they feel unsafe at school, for example, that might be because there's a few bullies, or it might be because the school is in a bad neighborhood, could be all sorts of stuff. And you can only learn that by actually talking to the school.
So thank you for the question. I will respond to the second question, and Iryna for the first. For the second question, yeah, you know it. For the second question, so for the schools, we didn't do some interviews. It was programmed, but without research, because I was alone for doing this for each schools. So we didn't do this, but we will do this for the second study now. And we will make some interview, and we will do some questionnaire for the direction of the school to have some indicators about the school environment, the project, how they manage the school, and what is the identity of the school, to know, to have some element to analyze the results of the school. And we program to have some workshop with the school to see what they do with the results. Because as I mentioned on the beginning of my presentation, we are an observatory under the Ministry of Education. We have some mission, it's to evaluate, but we are not there to work with the school, because we have some institution to do this. But so, yeah, I try to manage our evaluation, but the added value for the evaluation, because for me, the well-being is a sharing responsibility. We don't have to wait for the policymaker to make some change. It has to come in the field too. So this is this dual approach that I try to build, but it's in progress.
Yeah, regarding the first question, so it's about the period of data collection, as far as I understood, that, you know, if kids have exams in this particular period, they can be more stressed, you know, and report more negative values of well-being, if I understood you correctly. Mm. 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 The thing is, yeah, data was collected, as Somia said, at the active stage of COVID, when there was a lockdown. So it's also understandable that some kids reported being bored, you know, frustrated because you are locked at home. At the same time, I don't think they had a lot of pressure in terms of exams at that moment, because even, you know, a very important exam which they have to pass at the end of primary school to have an orientation for the secondary school, it was abolished, if I'm not wrong, because we don't have it in our like admin data for other projects. So it means like it was a kind of somnambule year for them, you know, they had some boredom, etc. But like I would not say they were extremely stressed. Maybe they were stressed because they had to do it on their own at home. You know, it's also kind of homeschooling in a sense. It's a period of COVID. But that's why it's gonna be really nice to compare the results, you know, with the second wave, like how the attitudes changed when we capture them now out of COVID.
Because of the time constraint, we move on to the last presentation of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.